In 1948, a psychologist named B.F. Skinner placed 8 pigeons inside individual boxes. Each box had a food dispenser set to release a pellet every 15 seconds, completely at random. Nothing the pigeon did would change when the food appeared. The drops were on a fixed timer. The pigeons had zero control. And yet, within minutes, 6 of the 8 pigeons had each independently invented their own personal ritual. One spun counterclockwise. One bobbed its head. One swung like a pendulum. They had created superstition from nothing. And the mechanism that drove them to do it is running inside your brain right now. You cannot turn it off. The year is 1948. B.F. Skinner is already the most controversial psychologist in America. He's the man who believes that all behavior, all of it, can be explained by reinforcement and punishment. No free will, no inner life, just stimulus and response. And he's about to prove something that will unsettle scientists for the next 8 decades. His setup is almost insultingly simple. 8 pigeons, 8 identical boxes. Each box contains a food hopper connected to a mechanical timer. Every 15 seconds, the hopper swings open for exactly 5 seconds, drops a small pellet of grain, and closes. The schedule is fixed, mechanical. There is absolutely no connection between what the pigeon does and when the food appears. It's the behavioral equivalent of a slot machine that pays out on a clock, except the pigeon doesn't know that. Skinner's question was straightforward. What happens to an animal's behavior when reinforcement is completely disconnected from action? The answer changed how we understand the human mind. Within minutes, something remarkable happened. 6 of the 8 pigeons developed distinct, repeatable behaviors. One pigeon began turning counterclockwise, always counterclockwise, making 2 or 3 full rotations between food deliveries. Another started thrusting its head into the upper left corner of the box over and over. A third developed a slow pendulum swing, rocking its body from side to side. A fourth began a precise head-bobbing motion up and down rhythmically as if performing a ceremony. These weren't random twitches. The pigeons repeated their rituals consistently. They performed them faster and more urgently as the next food delivery approached. When Skinner extended the interval between drops from 15 seconds to 1 minute, the rituals became more elaborate, more frantic. The pigeons were doubling down. Here's what happened. A pigeon was doing something, anything, the moment food appeared. Its brain linked the two events. I turned left, then food came. Turning left must cause food. The behavior got reinforced by pure coincidence. And once it started, the loop fed itself. The pigeon kept turning, food kept appearing on schedule, and every delivery strengthened the false connection. The pigeons had invented superstition, from scratch, from nothing but randomness and a brain wired to find patterns. But here's what makes this experiment more than a curiosity about birds. The mechanism that trapped those pigeons isn't a pigeon thing. It's a brain thing. And you have the same one. Your brain is fundamentally a pattern detection machine. That is its primary function. Before language, before mathematics, before philosophy, your ancestors survived because their brains were wired to find connections between events. Rustling grass might mean a predator. Dark clouds mean rain. A bitter taste means poison. The organisms that detected these patterns lived long enough to reproduce. The ones that didn't. But here's the critical part. Evolution didn't build a careful, precise pattern detector. It built a hair-trigger one. Because in survival terms, a false positive, thinking there's a lion when there isn't, costs you a little wasted energy. A false negative, missing the lion that's actually there, costs you everything. So your brain was calibrated to overdetect, to find connections even where none exist, to see causes in coincidences and signals in noise. This bias is so fundamental to human cognition that neuroscientists have given it a clinical name. And once you learn it, you will see it absolutely everywhere. The name is apophenia, the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between completely unrelated things, and it is absolutely everywhere in human behavior. Michael Jordan wore his University of North Carolina shorts under his Chicago Bulls uniform for every single game of his professional career. Wade Boggs ate chicken before every baseball game for 20 straight years. Serena Williams bounced the ball exactly 5 times before her first serve and twice before her second. Every single time for her entire career. A 2014 study published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology tested this directly. Researchers gave participants a motor skills task and told half of them to perform a personal good luck ritual beforehand. The ritual group performed measurably better, not because luck is real, but because the ritual reduced anxiety and increased their sense of control. Their brains were running the exact same software as Skinner's pigeons. The ritual became linked to success, and the link, once formed, reinforced itself with every positive outcome. but lucky socks are harmless. The real problem starts when you realize that apophenia doesn't stop at sports. The same mechanism that makes an athlete bounce a ball 5 times is the same one that can make a person look at unrelated events and construct an entire alternate version of reality. In 2008, researchers Jennifer Whitson and Adam Galinski published a landmark study in the journal Science, one of the most prestigious scientific journals on Earth. They wanted to test a specific prediction, that people who feel a loss of control become significantly more likely to see patterns in pure randomness. They ran 6 experiments. In one, they showed participants images of pure visual static random noise with no hidden image whatsoever. Participants who had first been made to feel out of control were significantly more likely to report seeing pictures in the static, faces, objects, patterns that simply were not there. This is the engine behind conspiracy thinking. When the world feels chaotic during pandemics, economic crashes, political upheaval, the brain's pattern detection system goes into overdrive, desperately searching for hidden order that explains the chaos. A coincidence becomes a connection. A connection becomes evidence. Evidence becomes a theory. And the theory, once formed, filters all new information through itself. Confirming data gets absorbed. Contradicting data gets dismissed, reinterpreted as part of the cover-up. It's not stupidity. It's not ignorance. It is the exact same pattern detection system that kept your ancestors alive on the savannah, now running at full power in a world it was never designed for. The pigeon spun counterclockwise. The human builds a conspiracy, same mechanism, different scale. Now, if apophenia is a predictable, well-documented glitch in human cognition, you can bet that someone somewhere has figured out how to exploit it for profit. And they have. The entire gambling industry is built on it. Slot machines are Skinner boxes for humans. That is not a metaphor. The behavioral psychology behind modern slot machine design traces directly, explicitly, back to Skinner's operant conditioning research. The key ingredient is called a variable ratio reinforcement schedule, where rewards come at unpredictable intervals. It is the single most addictive reinforcement pattern ever documented in behavioral science, more addictive than fixed schedules, more addictive than predictable rewards. Because unpredictability keeps the pattern detection system perpetually engaged, perpetually searching for the hidden rule that doesn't exist. A 2010 study from the University of British Columbia found that slot machine near misses, where 2 out of 3 symbols match, activate the brain's reward circuitry almost as strongly as actual wins. Your brain treats almost winning as evidence that winning is imminent. It finds a pattern in randomness. The gambler who says, "I'm due for a win," is running the exact same cognitive loop as Skinner's pigeon spinning counterclockwise, absolutely convinced that the next rotation will bring food. The global gambling industry generates over $500 billion in revenue annually. A staggering portion of that money is powered by a cognitive glitch, first documented in 8 pigeons in 1948. The same mechanism operates at an even larger scale in financial markets. In the 1630s, the Dutch tulip bubble saw individual bulbs sell for more than 10 times the annual income of a skilled craftsman. In 2000, companies with no revenue, no product, and no business plan were valued at billions during the dot-com crash. In 2021, a cryptocurrency literally named after a dog meme reached a market capitalization of $88 billion. In every case, the cognitive pattern was identical. Prices went up yesterday. Prices went up today. Therefore, the brain concludes prices will go up tomorrow. Technical analysts draw lines on stock charts and call them support levels and resistance levels, as if the market were a physical structure with a floor and ceiling. A 2013 study published in the Journal of Finance analyzed thousands of chart patterns used by professional traders and found that the vast majority performed no better than random chance at predicting future price movements. The patterns were real on the charts. They just weren't real in the market. But try telling that to a brain that evolved to find patterns or die trying. And now we arrive at the most sophisticated exploitation of apophenia in human history. It's not a casino. It's not Wall Street. It's the device in your pocket. In 2019, a former YouTube engineer described in an interview how the recommendation algorithm doesn't simply show you content you'll enjoy. It constructs a breadcrumb trail, a sequence of connections that your pattern detection brain compulsively follows. One video about a historical event leads to a video highlighting a suspicious detail. That leads to a video about an alleged cover-up, which leads to an entire alternative framework for understanding reality. Each step feels like discovery. Each click feels like you're uncovering something hidden. You're not. You're Skinner's pigeon. A 2020 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that YouTube's recommendation system could move a viewer from mainstream content to increasingly extreme material in an average of just 6 recommendation steps. 6 clicks from normal to radicalized. The algorithm didn't set out to create conspiracy theorists. It did something simpler and far more dangerous. It learned, through billions of data points, that humans keep clicking when they think they've detected a hidden pattern, so it manufactures the breadcrumbs. Internal documents from multiple social media companies have since confirmed what researchers suspected. Engagement metrics spike when content triggers pattern recognition responses. The platforms don't need to understand apophenia. They just need to measure clicks. The algorithm found the glitch on its own, empirically, the same way Skinner did, by watching what happens when you feed a pattern-hungry brain unpredictable reinforcement. So here's the uncomfortable truth you've been waiting for. You might be sitting there thinking, okay, now that I know about apophenia, I can watch for it. I can catch myself. I can override it with rationality. You can't. And here's why. The pattern detection system that creates superstition, fuels conspiracy theories, drives gambling addiction, and keeps you doom-scrolling at 2 in the morning is the exact same system that allows you to recognize faces. It's the same system that lets you understand language. Right now, as you listen to these words, your brain is taking a stream of sound waves and extracting meaning from them in real time. That's pattern detection. When you look at a friend's face and instantly know they're upset even though they're smiling, that's pattern detection. When a mother recognizes her child's cry in a room full of noise, pattern detection. You cannot remove the glitch without destroying the gift. There is no software update. There is no patch. Apophenia is not a bug in human cognition. It is a side effect of the most powerful feature your brain has. A 2015 study in the journal Cortex found that people who score higher on pattern recognition tasks, the people whose brains are best at their primary job, are also significantly more susceptible to seeing patterns in pure noise. Intelligence doesn't protect you from apophenia. In some measurable ways, it makes you more vulnerable. Because a more capable brain constructs more elaborate, more internally consistent, more convincing false patterns. Skinner's pigeons were eventually retrained. When the random food deliveries stopped entirely, the rituals slowly faded through a process called extinction. But it wasn't quick. The pigeon that spun counterclockwise performed over 10,000 rotations before it finally stopped. 10,000 repetitions of a behavior that never once, not a single time, actually produced food. Humans are harder to retrain than pigeons, because our rituals come with narratives. The pigeon just spins. We build entire worldviews around our spinning. We write books about our patterns. We argue about them in comment sections. We organize communities around them. We pass them to our children as wisdom. Every time you knock on wood, every time you feel that little rush when your team wins after you wore the right shirt, every time you scroll one more page because the next piece of the puzzle feels tantalizingly close. Every time you see a pattern in the chaos and think, there it is, I found it, you are the pigeon in the box. The food is coming on a timer. Your ritual has never mattered. But your brain, your beautiful, ancient, impossibly powerful, pattern-starved brain, will never stop believing that it does. That's not a failure of your intelligence. That is the price of having a mind at all. That glitch in your pattern detection system, it was working the entire time you watched this video. If you found yourself seeing connections between the pigeons and your own behavior, that's the mechanism in action. The question was never whether you have it. The question is what you do now that you know. If this changed how you see your own mind, subscribe. We break down the hidden psychology behind everyday human behavior every week. And drop a comment below, what's your pigeon ritual? The thing you do that you know doesn't matter, but you do it anyway. Be honest. We've all got one.